Hello, and welcome to episode number 24 of Boutique Talk. My name is Jake Boston, otherwise known as Steelbook Obsessed on all your major social media platforms. And every week, I have on a new guest to talk about their physical media journey. But not tonight. Tonight, my guest has been working in the entertainment industry, breaking scoops in Hollywood for well over a decade. He has now gone the independent route, where you can read his daily coverage at theinsnyder.com, as well as hear him weekly on the Hot Mic podcast with co-host John Roca. It is someone who I've been a fan of for years now, so it's a pleasure to introduce Jeff Sneider onto the podcast. How's it going, Jeff?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Although, yeah, my background can't compete with yours. That is a hell of a physical media collection.
At the end of the day, this podcast is just about like talking movies and anybody who has a love for them. So you were gracious enough to give me this interview. So I'm like, I'm not going to pass it up just because you don't want to talk about physical media. That's fine.
Oh, I mean, well, first of all, I just have to say I had a wall myself when I moved in with my girlfriend before the pandemic. She's like, you can't have all these DVDs, so I had to put them into like a big like CD book. I was only allowed to keep like 100 hardcovers basically. So yeah, I had to make some tough cuts. I still have two little rows of DVDs, but I can't really add many because I don't know where the hell to put them.
Sure. No, and man, I still have a couple of DVDs, but I just picture quality wise, that's the main reason why I collect what I do, is just it looks better in like 4K or Blu-ray than you can streaming, in my opinion.
Oh, I'm sure it does. There's no question that the quality on physical media is way better. But I've always just been someone where it's like, you know what, I will watch this if it's a grainy, like it doesn't matter how bad it looks, just like tell me a good story.
Right. No, in the room right behind this one, I've got VHS tapes too. Like I'm that guy. Yeah. Because that's just a whole nother thing to where you pop it in, you go into a whole new world, just like hit with nostalgia blast. Just when you turn the TV on and it has that hum, it's just, the analog TVs are the best.
Exactly. There's just something about it. I don't need the crystal clear image every time. Just give me something good.
Right. Well, since we're kind of talking about physical media right now, where do you think physical media is going to go in the next like 5 years? Because before we recorded, we talked about the article hitting. I've heard like there's been a few articles popping up in the past couple months saying there's going to be a resurgence of this stuff. What are your thoughts?
I think there is a resurgence coming. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be the studios that take advantage of it, right? Because then that means, well, we got to have infrastructure and we got to have divisions and pay salaries. I think it's going to make more sense to license this stuff out, right? Because you're seeing more and more boutique kind of labels and distributors who can do really nice packaging. And yeah, I think they're going to be getting their hands on more and more libraries or, whatever it is. And you're going to start to see more places like a Criterion, pop up, like a very curated selection of titles and maybe niche.
Yeah. And that's my favorite way to collect is through like the partner boutique labels. I just watched the movie Ticks from the 80s with Seth Green and Alfonso Riviera in this gorgeous packaging from Vinegar Syndrome in 4K. It's just like, this movie does not deserve to have this treatment, but I'm happy it does.
Exactly.
Right. Well, to go back into like your industry and what you've done, how did you get started doing this stuff?
I started out basically writing for Ain't It Cool News. I was writing for like the student paper at NYU. Like I remember my friend who was a DJ at the NYU radio station got invited to see like one of the Matrix sequels. And they're like, I don't want to fucking see the Matrix sequel. Here, you take this and say you're with the radio station or whatever. And so I would start to see these movies and any reviews that I could not get into the school paper, which by the way, had a stacked staff. Like Eric Cohn was my editor, even though he was a year below me. Eric Cohn was the longtime film critic for IndieWire, who's now running Harmony Korine's company. But like, it was a hell of a staff back then at the NYU paper. And anything that I couldn't get in, I would send to Harry Knowles at Ain't It Cool News. And he just started running the stuff and then letting me sort of say I was with the site to do, because I was in New York City. So I had access to talent in a way that even he did not, being in Austin, right? So in between classes at NYU, I would just go off and go to like some fancy hotel and interview A-list stars and then go back to class. I mean, it was wild. It was a damn good time. But what I didn't realize was that it kind of made it's like I chose my direction before even graduating college. Like, I went out there to be a screenwriter here in LA. I was already doomed because I was already sort of seen as like press.
No, I gotcha. I actually today I did a little bit of research on just like what you've done, and I noticed that you had one credit in a movie, and that movie was Heckler, the Jamie Kennedy documentary.
Yes.
Well, I watched that today because it's streaming on Tubi, I believe. And at the very end of that, you actually went in a boxing ring one-on-one with director Uwe Boll.
Yes, I was part of the big Uwe Boll 2006 publicity stunt where he took on 4 film critics in one night. He beat the shit out of all of us. Let me know if I shouldn't swear on this.
No, you're good. Yeah.
And I mean, that was just like a footnote in pop culture history. I'm proud to have been a part of it. It was completely ridiculous, but it was memorable, and I made it to the second round before throwing in the towel.
Okay.
But yeah, what an insane, crazy experience. I don't think you'll ever see anything like that again.
No. And in the documentary, you said you really hadn't even seen an Uwe Boll movie all the way through. I still haven't to this day. I've tried.
I had not at that point. Like, he was eager to fight someone from Ain't It Cool because those guys had really picked on him.
Right.
Sort of made him out to be the worst director ever. But it was the other writers. It wasn't me. They just didn't fit the physical qualifications that he was seeking.
Sure.
And I have seen some of Uwe's stuff since then, and it's not the worst. I mean, Postal is. I maintain that Postal is not a bad movie.
That's one of the two that I've tried. Postal and Blood Rain were the two, and I did not like either of them.
I mean, Blood Rain is bad. Postal, though, I could see what he was going for as far as like a controversial political satire. And the really good one though is Tunnel Rats, 1968. That's like a movie where you see that and then you find out it's directed by Uwe Boll, and you're like, wait, what? That was actually good.
I'm assuming you haven't talked to the man since you boxed him, correct?
No, I have actually. I've talked to him a bunch. I mean, when I was a trade reporter, I used to see him every year at AFM, which is the American Film Market. It's sort of where everybody kind of schlocky in the business goes to sell their wares. And so he would have like a suite for Boll AG, and I would always stop by and say hello.
Nice.
And by that point, I was like a real reporter. I mean, when I boxed him, I was just the intern at Variety. So right. he was eager to talk to me, and I'm sure we did a few stories together. But no, it's been quite a while since I've heard from him.
No, but that's still cool. Did he remember that he boxed you, or I'm assuming that was an in at some
Yes,
point.
I don't think any of us gave him, a good enough licking for him to have forgotten the evening. Yes, I think he remembered.
You look concussed at the end there. Like it at the end, it shows you in the alleyway puking your guts out. Just like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's not my finest moment. They took a picture of me surrounded in a pool of my own vomit and put it in Wired magazine. So, how many people can say that they've been in a Wired magazine surrounded by a pool of their own vomit? But yeah, what happened there was I had a trainer assigned to me, and the trainer got drunk that day and literally could not even make it to the fight. Like
you only had him for a day.
Oh yeah!
Oh my god!
Dude, I did no training. In fact, I was stoned in the ring. I'd spent all day inside of the Amsterdam Cafe, a weed cafe in Vancouver. Right. And so I didn't have like the trainer who I'd been at least talking to that weekend. And when I got out of the boxing ring, when I was done, your adrenaline is sky high, right? Your adrenaline is shot up, and no one was around to take the gloves off me, like because my gloves were all taped. No one was around. No one could help me get the thing off my head, the face protector. And yeah, I made it, started going back to the locker room, and the adrenaline just got me, and I popped. I threw up everywhere. And they put me on oxygen, though I did not go to the hospital. I was misreported by Variety.
Probably the only time, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, the way the industry has kind of evolved since that event happened, I don't see anything like that ever happening again. What do you think are some of the positives and negatives of where the industry is at today?
I think the positives are that anybody can make a movie, right? Like you can go out with your phone and make a quality type of movie. And that is that's a good thing, right? Because it lowers the barrier of entry, but that's also, I mean, it's also kind of a bad thing, right? Like, not that I want there to be gatekeepers, but I do think that there needs to be certain, quality, certain standards that are upheld. And I fear that the democratization of filmmaking has maybe hurt a little bit. I mean, it's a different world now where like stars are from TikTok these days. Journalists and critics are influencers. I mean, the lines have just become completely blurred.
Right.
Even growing up, like, you know, the access that celebrities used to give you, and now they're just on social media every day. And it's like the stars like Leonardo DiCaprio, Denzel, they know not to get on Instagram and start doing that stuff because they were taught you should have to pay for me. You want to see me, you got to pay to see Denzel. I'm not doing any streaming. That's why he dropped out of Leave the World Behind. Like, so it's just everything's different. And there's, a lot of changes still coming. There's going to be a huge contraction coming because we don't need 600 shows a year. People can't watch 600 shows. So why are we making 600 shows?
Right. What Disney's already talked about, they're going to finally push back on the Marvel stuff that they're doing, less TV shows, more movies. It's too much content out there for people to consume.
For sure. And it's like all these movies wind up on television anyways. That's just, more TV. And I think you got to work smarter and it where Netflix was trying to flood the zone and be everything to everybody, right? You're going to see them narrow the target a little bit, and instead of making 60 movies, now they're going to make 30 and hope that the quality of some of those is at least a little bit better.
Right. I think part of that too is just because of all of the issues we've had in the past 5 years with both COVID and the strikes that have happened. Which one of those do you think has been worse for the industry, or is just a combination of both that people are just like, wow, now we just got to kind of pump the brakes here?
I mean, it just depends. Like, in terms of worse for the industry, COVID was bad because I feel like it wiped out a segment of film goer that is never coming back to the movies. Right? And so everything needs to be revised because that segment is never coming back. And because you've also given the audience different expectations for when they can expect things to begin streaming and to be on VOD, right? I mean, it used to be like you'd almost have to wait a year. You have to wait a year for Titanic to come to VHS. Now Titanic would be available 17 days later, and so it wouldn't have the chance to get to the billions and billions of dollars. Or, and these movies, yeah, they might have legs, but those legs are cut out from under them because they go, 17 days later or whatever. And not every studio does it like that. It is a case-by-case basis. And I do think that flexibility is good because some movies that bomb, right? Why should you have to wait 3 months, to make them stream and then have to market them all over again? I mean, it doesn't make so there's more efficiency, but I forget where I was like going with this or what the original question was, but like
COVID and strike. I think you talked about the COVID part.
But the strike is just like, okay, we got better conditions for people, but at what expense? Like, there's going to be fewer people able to take advantage of those good conditions because there's going to be fewer people working in the industry. Right. So I think it all had to happen, but the strike stuff definitely could backfire in some ways on people.
Definitely agree with that. You were talking a little bit earlier about like the influencer part they've kind of sunken their teeth into this industry. I'm actually a guy who is on TikTok, and that's the reason why I have studios send me physical media stuff just to help them promote and whatnot. You were talking about getting releases sooner and sooner. The Book of Clarence that came out, like 5-6 weeks ago, I just got in the mail today. It's absolutely crazy the amount of time. Like, I feel like Hollywood is almost shooting itself in the foot by only allowing these movies to play in the theaters for a couple weeks, and then you're just kind of gone and done. It's just the major blockbusters that make the majority of the money for you.
Right. And don't get me wrong, there are influencers who do good work on TikTok, and that's where the audience is. I mean, you have to meet the audience where it is. I'm just too old to like start all over on a new social media platform and all that kind of stuff. Like I guess I just like the simplicity of Twitter. But it's very interesting. Like even today, I sat down at this press screening this afternoon, and the movie starts, okay, and when the movie starts, I was raised and my generation was raised that the phones go away.
Yes, they should.
But in this screening, the phones come out, and the person sitting next to me starts filming the first minute of the movie.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Because I assume they're going to incorporate that into their, review or whatever it is. I mean, it's and there's no, I don't think anyone like is stopping them, because that's why they were invited in the first place. Basically, it's kind of wild.
You need to keep people in the theaters that are there, and if they're trying to promote it to get more people in the theater, it just kind of, you got to suck it up for a little bit, I guess. That drives me crazy too, though. Like when I just go to a movie theater and people are watching a movie and get bored or something, they just kind of go on their phone, don't even like dim it or anything, just have it at full blast. I'm like, why are you even here? You're ruining it for everybody else. But I feel like I'm the only one that like gets mad at them about that. I feel like it's just become common knowledge that, this is a movie and it's not going to be the same experience it was 10 years ago.
Right. It's like, oh, well, we can take out our phones at a concert.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the whole thing is just, it's upside down. This whole industry is upside down, but you gotta adapt.
Right. No. Yes. I've had the privilege, like I live in the middle of buttfuck nowhere in the Midwest. So I get screeners sent to me instead of having to go into theaters. I wish that there was a way to watch screeners a little bit easier, or to where you wouldn't have to put them on like a small screen and you could like
screener situation is a disaster.
Oh my God.
I mean, every single company has its own
server,
right? It's its own like system, its own platform basically that they use for screeners. Sometimes they come with these gigantic watermarks. Yes. Right across,
see your name on
across the whole image, where it's like, if you don't trust me and you think I'm going to like upload this to the internet, why are you sending it to me to begin with?
Correct.
Right. This whole system needs to be one built on trust. And I understand a small tasteful watermark, but some of the watermarks really make things, you can't even watch them. You can't stream them to your television, right? If it's like on the laptop, some of them like prevent that, so you just have to watch it on your laptop with shitty sound, and it's just, it's not good.
Right. I had to watch Knox Goes Away, the Michael Keaton directed movie. I had to watch it on my phone because I didn't have my laptop with me, and they didn't allow a full screen function, so I couldn't even like make it full screen. I watched like 3/4 of it because there was just a little black bar up top because I couldn't get it all the way correct. I'm like, you expect me to give you a positive review and I'm watching it this way?
I mean, again, I don't, yes, you want to see the whole image and you want to see it projected and, as good as possible. But I don't know that I would like dock a movie on a review because of how it was shown to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I tried my best and I just saw the movie for what it was. But I mean, it's hard not to kind of at least have some type of negative image in your mind if you're not even seeing everything that the director intended.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, yes, the presentation matters, and that, like, okay, I saw Origin, and there was like a fire alarm in the middle of that movie, so like that that killed the momentum, and that's not the movie's fault. That's just that the situation is what it is. And so, but like, and the right projection, the right circumstances, though, can make a good movie a great movie.
Yes.
Right? Because you feel the sound in your ass or whatever.
Yep. I went to one of those like secret movie things that the movie theaters do, to where like you don't know what movie you're walking into, but it's a cheaper price and they give you like a hint. This Monday, it was the movie Sting. It was based out of Australia, kind of like a creature feature type spider movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard about that.
And it was, because I saw it in the theater and because the 7 people that were in the theater were all like ready to like be in for that kind of movie, just that movie going experience was great. We were all in clapping for like this creature feature movie. It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, festivals are the same thing, right? The festivals offer like this incredible atmosphere and everybody is excited to be there and they've traveled hundreds of miles and like, it helps sell a movie, but also you realize when you leave the festival, it's like, oh, I had festival goggles on for that screening and the movie actually wasn't that good. I just got swept up in the hype.
It happens from time to time, and you try your best not to make it happen, but when you're just like in a certain mood or in a certain environment, it's kind of hard to pump the brakes a little bit.
Right.
We talked about how movie theaters are trying to evolve the past 5 years with what's been going on. From when you started to where you're at now, how do you think just the industry in like writing and breaking Hollywood scoops, how has that changed?
I mean, it has and it hasn't. I mean, it's when I got here, it was just Variety versus Hollywood Reporter, really,
Hmm.
right? And Variety clearly had the upper hand, and yeah, we then the Wrap came along, and Deadline came along, and Deadline is now this news breaking powerhouse, and that's where everything is sort of funneled. It sort of functions as like an industry bulletin board, if you will. So like that via Nikki Fink and via smart hires of Mike Fleming and Nellie Andriva, that site was able to position itself in a certain way. The Wrap is a site where, like, I remember when I was working there 10 years ago, that people would be like, dude, how long is the Wrap even going to be around? Right. Well, it's still around.
Yeah.
Right. She elbowed a place for herself at the table. And like, my hat's off to her because, no, I mean, it's tough to create a trade and to break into that business. But but then obviously Penske buying everything, that changes things because now the trades are less competitive with each other. Yeah, they still want to beat each other, but it's like not the end of the world. If the sister outlet breaks the story, because it's all going to the same boss, right? The traffic. So I think that has sort of changed the landscape. It's a little bit less. It's less competitive, but it's also more competitive because now there's so many Twitter accounts and Patreons and people trying to break stuff through that, and some of them actually have sources, and some of them just sort of get their hands on grids and throw out information without confirming anything, right? And some of them you don't even know who they are, right? They don't even use their real name.
Right.
It's just this is some random Twitter handle.
And how can you trust them?
Yeah. Right. I mean, yes, some of those accounts have, a good track record, but it's like, well, who are you? Like, what are you risking? You have credibility, but when you're wrong, you don't get any heat because no one knows who you are.
You can just create another account. I mean, honestly,
basically, practically.
Yeah. So what was the main reason why you decided to start your own website and kind of break news that way?
I mean, it wasn't by choice. I wish I could get a staff gig, but I'm not very well liked by Penske's HR department, apparently. And there's only so many places that will pay top dollar for this kind of news, right? A lot of places are interested in it, but they don't want to pay a real reporter to break it because they can pay someone half as much and then just put it up 5 minutes later, right? Because there's no ownership over news, really. Particularly with my kind of stories, which are like, you can kind of get it all in the headline sometimes. So it's part of it is that the elite tier of publications either aren't interested in the kind of stuff that I write, or they have someone who can do it already, or they just don't like me, or these places would love to have scoops, but they can't afford me, right? And they just don't pay staffers that much. I struck out on my own because my boss was basically like stealing from me. I mean, I understand that the strikes hurt a lot of people, and the Emmys got moved from September to January, and so all the ad money that you expect to come in the run up to the Emmys now isn't coming in.
Okay.
And so my boss was sort of stringing me along, being like, "Oh, I don't have the money this week. I'll pay you next week." And then next week would come, and we would be like, "Well, I'll pay you the week after." And you roll with the punches because I get that everybody's hurting, and you're just glad to have a job. But at some point, it's like, dude, this tab is just getting bigger and bigger, and there's no way I don't see you digging your way out of it.
Right.
And so really, you're just lying to me about the situation and getting free labor out of me. And I felt taken advantage of, and so it was time to leave that job. And I just hate having to start over every 2 or 3 years. I own up to the mistakes that I've made in this business, and I've deserved to lose a few jobs, but I've also lost great jobs that had nothing to do with me. So I feel like the world's most unlucky entertainment reporter, and I'm just tired of working for someone else and making someone else money and building something else for them and creating something of value, and then just being cut loose, right? So it's time to create for myself, kind of.
Yeah. At this point, Jeff, I hate to say it, but you're kind of getting the influencer mentality. Like, you got to make sure that you are looking out for you and just kind of breaking as big as you can get. I've had the same thing to where, like, I get hired on for jobs to create ads for companies, and the money takes forever to hit your account. It's just like, okay, thanks for making this. And you posted it, you showed the numbers. It's great. But yeah, we got to take at least 60, 90 days to pay you. I'm like, how is that even ethical? It drives me nuts.
Sure. I mean, yes, and I've learned that as a freelancer. Like, I mean, I'm still owed money by certain outlets, and
Sure.
yeah, they try to buy themselves time with 30, 60 days, whatever it is. But at some point, when that time is up, you got to pay up. I mean,
Yep.
it's wild the way the freelancers are treated and abused, and like, yeah, I could not advocate for it.
Yeah, it's definitely rough for sure, but it's also rewarding when you're able to put in the hard work and see stuff grow in front of you and know that you don't have to kind of give it out to anybody else. It's just all for you, and it makes you work that much harder.
Sure, I mean, yes, but like, God, it's a lot nicer having a staff gig where you're like, I know I'm going to get this money at the end of the week, whether I break a story or I don't.
Sure.
Right? It's just tough having that survival mentality and always fighting for scraps. And
Hmm.
yeah, I just don't know that I could do freelance full time, year round, and then trying and chasing the money is like a separate job on its own.
Right.
It's
Hmm.
insane.
I've been unemployed for a month, and I felt like I had one of my hardest jobs ever, just trying to get those benefits. And just, I don't wish that on anybody. Just, it's rough. And
It's
I feel like there's multiple points doing the whole freelance influencer thing to where, like, yeah, I'm working extra hard just to get a little crumb.
Yeah, it's just it seems like everyone is trying to fuck you. Like, I don't remember like what happened to the days of like I put in a hard day's work and like I for a fair wage. Like,
No, I died with
it's
my grandpa, man.
yeah, like
That's just not the way
you're right.
anymore. Hmm.
You're right. It's sad. Just how much like expertise and experience is undervalued. And I put this way, I'm 40. I've been doing this 20 years. Like, what am I supposed to do when I'm 60? Like, retire on my movie blogger savings? Like, I need to build something for myself, because if I can't get jobs now, how am I going to get jobs, 10, 15 years from now? Even though I should be, training and mentoring the next generation. I like doing that stuff, but
Right.
people I think are very reluctant to hand over their young talent to me, to their impressionable young minds.
Well, that's sad because you are breaking stories left and right. Like, the biggest one that I can think of in the past like week or two was that Scarlett Johansson Jurassic franchise, her being the lead. Did breaking a big story like that, did you get a lot of like flooding to your feed, or did you get a lot of news outlets at least like giving you credit for breaking that scoop, or how does something like that go?
I mean, it's a tricky one because that was just an offer. Like, honestly, I didn't report, hey, she's going to star in it.
Yeah.
It's they want her to star in it. I don't know if she said yes yet, if they've come to terms, etc. So a lot of places won't pick up a story when it's that kind of early.
Hmm.
Yes, it definitely, drove some subscribers and drove some Twitter followers and stuff like that. But it's always tough to like break a huge story like that, and then these Twitter accounts that have like 1 million followers, they'll tweet it out, and that's where everybody sees it. And yeah, I appreciate the link, right?
Hmm.
Because it spreads my link around, but it helps the traffic for the site. But I'm not interested in traffic because I'm selling subscriptions.
Sure.
So it doesn't help when like one subscriber basically takes the story and then puts it on their site, because then people just read it there rather than paying for it. But I think the idea is that you build up a track record, you get your name out there enough. People are like, well, why am I coming to this aggregator to read this when I can read it earlier and from straight from the source or whatever, when it breaks? That's the goal, anyways. But with that one in particular, like, there's a good lesson in that. So that's one where like I had that Bill Hader Cat in the Hat story
Right.
in the newsletter that
Hmm.
night. It was
Hmm.
like 5:30 and I was probably going to publish around 6:37, and I get the Scarlett Johansson tip, and it's like, okay, and like my girlfriend was coming over and we're supposed to go to dinner.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, you have a decision to make, Jeff. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to just go with Bill Hader and then deal with ScarJo tomorrow morning? Are you going to lose it by tomorrow morning? Like, that's the thing.
Hmm.
It becomes, unfortunately, I become so paranoid in this job, right? I just feel like the trades are just right behind me.
Right. Yeah.
They're like the boogeyman. And so then you also have to like gauge the project and the actress. And do I believe this is going to happen? Right? Do I personally, Jeff Sneider, believe this is going to happen? Because if I don't, why am I telling other people it'll happen? Right?
Mm-hmm.
If I don't think it will. And so that's what I did in that hour. The writing comes easy. It's the decision making. It's, is she going to say yes to that movie at this point in her career?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately the decision was, I think it would be tough for her to turn down right now after her last few movies, which were all good movies and acclaimed movies, but not blockbusters. She needs to show that she can open a real blockbuster outside of the MCU. And she's done it before with Lucy, and that's why Universal wanted her so badly, because that she turned that into a huge hit.
Sure.
And any other actress in that movie could have made a quarter of as much money as it did. So, it's factors like that, and also, could I have lost the Cat in the Hat thing by waiting an extra day?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yes, these are the things that you cannot learn in school. You cannot learn them in journalism school. You can only learn them by experience,
right?
And just getting a feel for the situation.
Right. And it's gotta, I mean, you thinking of what story to put out for what day, especially when there's a couple that break, your experience definitely does help. But it's also nice that you're doing like an everyday, like you're putting out something every day. So it's nice to kind of have like one in the hopper for the next day to at least be like, okay, this is what I'm going to go with. And hopefully no one scoops me.
Those are the best days, when you wake up and you already know what your top story is. Cause then it's like, okay, I don't really need to like bust my ass too hard. I mean, yeah, you're always busting your ass because you always need stories. But yeah, it is a nice feeling when you're like, okay, I know what my headline's going to be tonight, rather than searching for it or having to call around for it.
Sure.
And I also have to accept it. Like, you can't force it, right? Like, there's going to be days where I don't have a big scoop. And so what am I going to say about someone else's scoop that's going to make this subscription worthwhile?
No, totally get that. And I think the way you thought about it and put the ScarJo thing ahead, it makes all the sense in the world to me. And there's probably going to be more examples of you having to deal with like 2 or 3 different things of when to put where, or even putting 2 in the same day. I don't know.
I was just going to say that sometimes you have to. Sometimes it's like, I have no choice and I have to do 2 scoops in a day. But yeah, ideally the goal is to spread it out while still not losing anything. And I guarantee I will lose something at some point by getting greedy and spreading it out, and that'll be a valuable lesson.
Right. Well, hopefully it doesn't happen anytime soon, Jeff. Yeah, hopefully you're in the clear. One, I guess this is kind of a pivot a little bit, but I like the way you break stories and whatnot now. But the first way I was introduced to you was through the movie Trivia Schmodown back in the day. For people that don't know, it was like wrestling mixed with movie trivia. It was, and I love both of those things. So it was just a match made in heaven to me. Could you just give me like I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes on your experiences with that?
Yeah, I mean, I fucking miss it, dude.
Yeah,
I miss it so much. I miss just going in there on shoot days and all these great like movie minds like in the room, and like someone asking a question and the players like don't know and the other team doesn't know, but like people in the audience are like, just the whole camaraderie of the thing. And yeah, there are people you don't get along with, or people who piss you off, and the fans sometimes piss you off, but like I'll never be a part of something like that again. Probably. It was a very special thing. I remember getting out of the cab in Chicago for that live event. There's probably like 1,000 or 1,200 people there, including all my high school boys, and it was like I felt like a Beatle.
Sure.
I mean, so yeah, I definitely miss it. And I wish I took it very seriously. I almost wish I hadn't gotten so wrapped up in it.
Well, that was part of the fun of it, though, man. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly.
Seeing people like want to win. Like some people did not care and it was all laissez-faire, but right. I mean, you won belts with a couple different people in their tag team division. Like it's nice when people take it seriously because it makes the people watching it take it seriously.
Oh, I'm just very competitive. There's nothing I can really do about that. But I don't know. I'm sure I was an asshole at times, and I regret those instances. So to anybody who felt offended at any point, I apologize.
When you guys were filming that, like I watched it as a fan of Dan Murrell, Sam Levine, those type of people. Like I kind of followed them into that. But going into Schmodown and watching it for the 4 or 5 years that I did while it was around, I learned about so many people within the industry. Did When you guys were like filming stuff, did it kind of almost feel like a networking event to go on top of like the trivia
Sure,
aspect of everything?
sure, and I'm sure for a lot of people it was. I mean, it wasn't. It wasn't. I want to. It's a community I value, and obviously I'm a part of it. You know, hosting with a show with Roca, and
Hmm.
hanging out with Roxy and Christian or whatever. But it wasn't. They weren't like my people. Like I felt like I was the industry and the trades, and not so much writing for consumers like the Collider sort of was.
Hmm.
But yeah, I definitely think it was a great networking opportunity for a lot of people. Some people met their wives there. I mean, Sam Levine got married. Taylor and Jacob, right? I think like there were people who lifelong bonds were created because of that show and friendships. But yeah, I'm sure it also functioned as like a business thing. I mean, Christian hired a lot of people to do a lot of different odd jobs on that show.
Yeah, I miss it like hell too. I'm pretty sure COVID had a deal with like kind of stopping its momentum a little bit because you guys were doing live shows like crazy, and then that had to stop obviously, and that's its own thing. But
Yeah,
like you,
I think it lost. I mean, the show lost its way before COVID, though. I mean, I think it was also kind of like, I mean, it had lost certain personalities who had gotten burned out, and I think that it started to emphasize more the trivia and the being right rather than like the fun and the matches, like the storylines and the characters. I think that is kind of why people tuned in. But I also understand wanting to put out like a good product with like the best players.
sure, no, but I mean like you dressed up at that live event as the Bear Jew walking down at the
Yeah.
bat, like that's going to be imprinted in my brain forever. I just absolutely ate that up with a spoon, man.
And that's a great moment, but it's like, okay, so now you can't have the sound on YouTube because, of the music that was played live. Like it's that kind of corporate shit. Like once it got like corporate,
Right.
it wasn't the same.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Yeah, you're independent, and then you get signed by somebody. Stuff has to change. Totally get it.
Right.
But it is nice. I only found out about the hot mic 3 months ago, and then ever since then I've been watching about it. I've been watching it weekly. Like I love that show and hearing YouTube banter still. How did that show come about? Because it happened a little bit after Schmodown ended.
Yeah, I don't even remember how it started or whatever. But yeah, Roca, I mean, I always loved Roca. We were very close at Collider and would always get lunch and everything together. And yeah, he's just a passionate dude like me and an honest dude like me. And I think you need someone who you have chemistry with, who you can say anything to, and you're going to be friends, at the end of it. And we've had our ups and downs and our screaming matches, I'm sure. But I respect how hard John works on the show and what he brings to it. And he's had some interesting stories and scoops as well.
Right.
And yeah, I like having a presence on YouTube and doing something regularly and creating something of value, even if it's like, a decade of YouTube videos. We'll see.
Yeah. Have you thought about starting your own channel? I know like on the podcast, you kind of sprinkle ideas out.
I mean, I have, like, that's why I bought this desk, but it's so tough. Like it's a whole new skill set to learn. It's a huge time investment. It's not necessarily where my strength lies. I think if I was forced to do it, I would. If like my back was really up against the wall, I don't know. I was planning to launch it soon, but I think that those plans may end up getting delayed. So we'll see.
I would love to see you on there, and I know even like just personally talking as like a secondary source of income, it is nice. Like once you have like X amount of videos that get seen over and over again, just having that daily reminder of, hey, I made X amount of dollars today. It's nice on two different levels, a creative and now a economical. It's just
right. I would just want to simplify, like, let me just hit record and talk and stop record and press upload, and then I want to be done with it. Like,
I mean, that's what this is. That's what I'm going to do here. This goes on YouTube, and it also goes to the Spotify's podcasts
I just mean, like doing thumbnails and SEO checks and YouTube descriptions and timestamps and slotting in ads and uploading it to podcast networks. And I mean, once you start to go down that's like a full-time job.
The hardest part is starting, though. I mean, once you start getting your reps in, it's just second nature to you.
You're absolutely right, and that's why I've been dragging my feet, because I haven't, and that's like just classic Jeff. And I'm like a terrible procrastinator. I'm bad with paperwork, and if I don't think I'm going to do something great the first time out, I tend not to do it. And I know that I need to just get my feet wet and learn how to do it, because it will benefit me in the long run, and it will become second nature. But you're right, starting is
totally
just paralyzed.
Correct. No, I've been there plenty of times, and sometimes like I'm just ready to film a video, but I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about. So I'm just like, okay, I don't know what to do. See, I just kind of push through it.
And that's the thing that drives me crazy. It's like I've never had that issue. I can talk and I can write and I can just keep going for infinity, but it's the learning the tech side of everything. And I wish I could just have like a producer basically who handled all that stuff.
Yeah, then it's somebody else to pay.
Right, exactly. That's the other hand. I don't want to give away the money.
Right. No, I'm the same way, man. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that happens one of these days. But something that I did watch on YouTube, because the first episode is up, is an episode of Icons Unearthed, the Batman. And you were in the first episode, you're in like 10, 15 seconds. But man, every commercial break they showed a promo, and your face was on that promo. It's been viewed 160,000 times in a week.
That's amazing. I had no idea. I thought it was going to be like a Netflix thing. I guess I didn't even know what the hell I was sitting down for. I didn't realize it was going to be on Vice TV. But yeah, it was a friend of mine who was the producer who just thought of me for that. So that was very sweet of her, and I appreciate it. I was so sweaty that day, Jake. Like, dude, I was raining. And I'm like, are you guys seeing this on camera? Like, I needed like tissues, and I'm like mopping myself, and like the tissues getting like stuck to my forehead, and like, I was not prepared to be on camera that day. And also, they asked like tough questions, and like, yes, I was around for the Nolan development of like Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises a little bit, but like, I wasn't around in like the original Batman days for Tim Burton. So like, well, I know those movies well and know like some of the backstory surrounding them and Schumacher. Like, I don't know. Sometimes you have to fake it till you make it in this town.
No, absolutely. Well, you faked it great, because I mean, you're only in a couple seconds of this, but I mean, you knew what you were talking about. You brought some insight to it. That's all you can really ask for.
That's all in the editing. A show like that is make or break in the editing room.
I'm a sucker for that type of content too, man. It reminded me of like the movies that made us, toys that made us type of stuff.
Well, yeah, that's why I did it. That's why I said yes, because it was the team that did the movies that.
Oh, it was okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, same production company. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just the way it was edited and kind of like the music choices that they decided to go down. It's great. I don't have access to Vice. I don't know where I'm going to be able to watch it.
That's why I thought it was going to be on Netflix, because that's who did Movies That Made Us. But whatever.
Yeah. At least. Yeah, no, you have something, you have a connection, a foot in somewhere. Hopefully you just get to do something else that more people will be able to see.
Yeah.
Well, man, I am kind of burning through a lot of the things that I was going to talk about. I guess one thing that I do kind of want to say, you're a big breaker of scoops in the industry. I have a few IPs that I love that I don't know if anything is happening with in the industry. I have a few, since I have you on. I know that Toy Story 5 is being made, but I don't know anything about it. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not, but I mean, they're bringing back Tom and Tim, right?
I don't think anything's been said.
I mean,
yeah, you kind of have to.
Yeah,
but
it's like you're not making another Lightyear movie or whatever. So
no,
I think you have to bring back those guys,
right?
Because they're not spring chickens. I mean, get them while you can. Those guys are probably, how old do you think they are? 70? How old is Hanks?
I have no idea.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
You should, yeah. I mean, it's just them using their voice. I know their voice, when you get super old, your voice kind of goes, but I feel like just them being toys, they can do it at least for another decade. And they'll probably have 2 or 3 more.
Hanks is 67, Tim Allen 70.
Yeah.
I mean, use these guys while you can.
Absolutely. And yeah, Toy Story 4 was what it was, but that thing is just a money printing machine. So
I like them all. I think every single one of the movies is really good, including Toy Story 4. And I think Toy Story is like a masterpiece.
Yes,
I
the
get
first
a
Toy
bad
Story.
rap for not loving like animated movies, but Toy Story is one of my favorites.
I know you hate Letterboxd, but Toy Story is one of like my 4 favorites on there, just because I think it's the perfect animated film. It's great.
That's a good gimmick that Letterboxd has going, is the 4 favorites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all over my Instagram, TikTok feed. Is just them like talking with celebrities. Hey, what were your 4 favorite movies?
Right.
Great. Another one of my favorite movies is John Carpenter's The Thing. I know that they have had talks of making a sequel to it, of Carpenter possibly coming back for it. I don't know if you've heard anything about that at all.
I mean,
or if you don't want to talk about it and break it in, you don't have to.
No, it's not that I haven't heard about it, but like I just don't know how real it is. Like, you hear about it from people who I think really want it to happen and for it to be real, but it's like, is this actually a priority there over at Blumhouse? I actually do think that it will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that last movie with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I did not care for. Like,
I haven't seen it because The Thing is my favorite movie of all time, and I don't want anything to tarnish that at all.
It's like they've tried it, right? And they tried doing The Thing again. It didn't work.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but the Blumhouse thing makes it interesting.
Agreed. Yes, they've been able to pump life into a lot of either original or existing IP. So I'd be very interested.
Pump life into it and then quickly suck the life out.
Doesn't matter. At least they made money off it. That's all they want.
Yes.
Yeah. One more that comes to mind would be a sequel to The Social Network. I've heard rumblings that there's a script out there, but I don't know anything else.
I mean, I know that that's another project that those guys have talked about doing. It seems like a bad idea to me.
I would absolutely love it. Why does it sound bad to you? There's been so much stuff that's happened since 2010.
I mean, yeah, there has, but I just feel like that movie was so perfect. I mean, do we really need like a sequel? I mean, Fincher's not really like a sequel kind of guy.
Which is why I would love to see it. Like, he's never really like went back to any of these IPs, and I would love to see what he would do playing in that sandbox again.
Yeah, I mean, is it still Jesse? Like, hasn't Mark Zuckerberg changed a little from like college era Zuckerberg?
He's more muscular now. Like, he's gotten big into like UFC. Like, watching that stuff, it's bizarre.
So Jesse Eisenberg, if you've seen some of his recent movies, he's also bulked up a little bit. But,
well, there you go. He's preparing for the role, Jeff.
Maybe you're right.
Ready to get called.
Maybe you're right.
Yeah. Well, that's honestly everything that I had prepared, except Blumhouse. Have you ever worked with them in the past at all?
Well, I was there. I was their intern. So when I first graduated college, I came out here and I was an intern at Blumhouse. They were a production company with a deal on the Paramount lot. They had made Hysterical Blindness, which was an HBO movie with Uma Thurman, and they really had nothing going on. Even like the scripts, like the stuff that they had me reading that summer, I was like, this is all kind of garbage. But I had heard of Paranormal Activity. It existed. It was a DVD on a shelf I was not allowed to touch. And sure enough, as soon as I left to go be a variety intern, which paid money, they put out like Paranormal the next year and then became Blumhouse. And it was like, holy shit, I messed that up. I wish I had stuck around because maybe I'd actually have a position there.
Sure. That's kind of hard to see, though, especially when you weren't even allowed to do anything. But yeah, just the what ifs. You always think about the what ifs, right?
Oh, exactly. They haunt you.
Well, if that tidbit is correct, I like I said, before we did this, I did some research online. Did you also work in production for the show Malcolm in the Middle?
I did, yes. In between junior and senior year, of college, I came out here for the summer, and I worked for Luke Greenfield, the Girl Next Door director. Yeah. 3 days a week, and then the other 2 days a week were at the Malcolm in the Middle writer's office on the CBS Radford lot. And I just really, it was just bringing the writers snacks and stealing snacks for myself.
Right.
I mean, they had an incredible kitchen with everything you could want. And yeah, I
Mhm.
made copies of scripts, but like I wasn't like a writer's assistant who's in the room taking notes with them and
Gotcha.
helping to break story. But I got to know all the writers a little bit, and they're all like some of the most brilliant comedy writing minds. And it was
Mhm.
cool to be able to go to the set and everything. But I basically left to go back to school right when they were starting to film again. So I never actually got to see the show in production.
Gotcha. Since you've kind of, I mean, you were close to being in those rooms, have you ever tried to get a writer's position on any like TV show, movie, anything like that? Does that?
I haven't. I don't even know like how it's done. Like I see so many like young people in these writers' rooms, and I'm like, well, how did that happen? I guess it starts with having a good sample,
Hmm.
and I've never really had that. I mean, yeah, I went to school for screenwriting and have a bunch of scripts, but like I'm so critical. Maybe why I became a critic. I
Hmm.
never shared them really with anybody or sent them out, and so maybe I never really even gave writing a chance.
Right.
That's sort of the thing that maybe haunts me out here. But so no, I've never really tried to get a job in a writer's room. I think I would do well, like working in a team and
Sure. Hmm.
helping to break story and stuff like that. But I also gravitate more towards like screenwriting and understand the beats of a movie more than I do the beats of television, having to string out one story over 8 or 10 hours, etc.
Right. Hmm.
That's
No,
tough.
totally get that. I would love to see you put something together. The scripts that you wrote in college, have you thought about any of those since you've wrote them, or went
Yeah,
any deeper in developing them?
for sure. And I feel like I have good taste. I wrote like a Lizzie Borden script in college, and then then there was a Christina Ricci, Lizzie Borden stuff. Then you had the Kristen Stewart Lizzie Borden movie.
Hmm.
So like Lizzie Borden was always something in college, and I'm like, this would make a good movie. And sure enough, Hollywood did pick up on that. I adapted Eric Bogosian's first novel, Mall, when I was in college. And then when I was a variety reporter, one day I went on Deadline, and Deadline announced the guy from Lincoln Park is teaming with Vincent D'Onofrio to make a movie based on that book. Now, no one's seen that movie, basically, even though it has actually an interesting cast, like Gina Gershon and Cameron Monaghan from Shameless.
Hmm.
But like that's another example of like this is a book that I identified that no one is thinking of as a movie, and sure enough, it did become a movie. Just I had nothing to do with it. There's been a bunch of things like that. But the thing I would most like to make, the thing I'm most proud of writing was a script about Bob Weinstein.
Oh no.
Right, exactly. No one's gonna touch
Right.
that now.
Right.
But that was very much like Empire Records, where like it's about a video store clerk in Buffalo, New York, where the Weinstein brothers are from,
Hmm.
and her store is being threatened with closure, and so she appeals to Bob Weinstein to help save the video store.
Maybe you
Um,
could change out a name or
right, exactly.
something.
Just get a different celebrity in there. Exactly. Change the setting.
Right.
I think if there's anything else. I mean, the only other thing is a sex comedy that I wrote called Vancouver, which you can't even do sex comedies with men anymore, so you'd have to gender flip it, and I think it
Hmm.
could still work. But yeah,
We'll just call it Womancouver.
you'd
Yeah.
probably have maybe something Vancouver.
Heyo, look at
Who knows?
that. Yeah, man, I feel like that genre is bound to come back, even if it's just like living on streaming services somewhere. I feel like that's where that would be
People
a
are hungry for comedies. Teens are always going to want to watch teen movies.
hmm.
And I'm surprised there hasn't been any movies about the phenomenon of going up to Canada to get shit faced. I mean, that's what you can't drink here until you're 21.
Hmm.
So on the West Coast, they go to Vancouver, and on the East Coast, they go to Montreal.
Hmm. That's a great idea, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm shocked that there hasn't been a Canadian comedy, basically, like
sure.
a teen sex comedy with Americans. But
Hmm.
so
Probably
yeah,
pitching it out here, it's kind of harder to do. I would think,
but,
just because I had no idea
everything
about that.
shoots up
Yeah,
there too. Everything that there's
that's
infrastructure up
true.
there. So
Hmm. Well, very
yeah.
good. Yeah. Thank you once again for coming on here and talking with me for a whole hour. I kind of talked about the hot mic and the Sneider. Is there anything else you'd want to plug before we get out of here?
No, I mean FYC. I'm sure we'll be coming back for Emmy season, and I do that with Perry Nemiroff and Scott Mance. But yeah, no, thanks for having me, Jake. I appreciate it. And to your listeners, you can find me at theinsnyder.com. That's where I've got a daily newsletter. I'm competing with the trades for scoops, and then on days where there aren't scoops, I try to say something smart and offer some good industry analysis. So thanks for subscribing, giving it a shot. If you need a discount, let me know. Just DM me.
Right. And I will have the link in the description of this below. So it's just easier for everybody to find.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Thank you once again, Jeff, for coming on. This has been episode number 24 of Boutique Talk. And until next time, I'll see you.